Welcome to episode number 6 of Life Without Cravings. In this episode, I want to talk about what carb addiction actually is. So in my mind, there is no difference between carb addiction and addiction to other substances or behaviors. And I'm saying this because our brains react to and become addicted to carbs the same way as it does become addicted to other substances. Not everyone who eats carbs will become addicted to carbs. The same way as not everyone who drinks alcohol will become addicted to alcohol, or everyone who smokes weed will become addicted to weed, etc. We're all different. We all have different preferences and pleasures that we seek out, but I think everyone has the ability to become addicted because this is how our brains are wired. It's in our biology to do that. Because it has helped us survive. It's actually a really good trait to have. So if you have a brain that tends to be drawn to all the addictive behaviors, which some of us do, you just have a really efficient brain. It's just not meant to be in the environment that it is right now. It has not evolved to be around all of these things. We have created all of these things because they feel good and then they just feel a little bit too good. And we're stuck with them, right? So there's nothing wrong with your brain. It's just things are wrong with the environment, if you like. It's like if you could take this super fast, mega sensitive racing car. It responds instantly to very small changes in pressure on the gas pedal. And you want to use it as your golf cart because you like to play golf and you love this car. But why not do them at the same time? Then you get to do two things that feel really good, right? However, what is going to happen is that you're most likely not going to be able to apply the right kind of pressure on the gas, especially not in the beginning, maybe with some practice. And you will drive in a very jerky way, and you will probably destroy the grass. And this wasn't your intention. But the car was not built for slow, careful driving on a pretty lawn. It's built to be powerful and to go fast. And the same is true for addictive brains. They are built to seek out pleasure. Because pleasure means that something has gone right, and when things go right, your ability to survive is going up. So the way you know that something is pleasurable just depends on how your brain reacts to that thing. In general, we as humans are looking for a few things. Our human brains are looking for a few things. So we're looking for food so that we can survive. That's kind of one of the basic things that we need. If we don't eat, we're gonna die. In general, sweet is something that we seek out, but even better, a combination of sweet and fat and salt, usually, is what gives us most pleasure. And that's what food scientists are doing. They are creating foods with the right ratio of all of these things, and then they're testing them out on test subjects that will just let them know this one was the nicest one, and then they know which one will appeal to most people and be most addictive. And those are the foods that they're going to sell. We're also trying to not use any energy unnecessarily. Back in the days when we didn't have food everywhere, if we were just out running around, wasting energy on doing nothing, and we couldn't find any food, we would probably die way before our neighbor who was just laying in the cave, counting the days or whatever. So that's also in our nature to be lazy. Laziness is built into us. And that's why if we feel like we are not motivated to do something, we're not going to want to do it, and we can't just switch that on and off. Usually if you're really hungry, you're going to be motivated to go and get some food. Like, you might be lazy, you might be laying on the sofa, but when you get hungry enough, you're going to go up and you're going to get something to eat. Maybe you don't have any food in the fridge. Oh, do you need to go and shop? Okay, you need to go and shop. Back in the days, you would have to go out and hunt, which would take quite a while, and it would expend a lot of energy probably and effort. But now you don't even have to go shop. You just call for someone to deliver pizza. Sure, you have to get up from the sofa to open the door and pay them, but after that you can just lay down and eat pizza again. It's so easy. It's all pre-programmed. This is not because people are bad people. This is because our biology is telling us that this is the right thing for us to do. So most people, if they don't have to do anything, they will end up on the sofa all day or sit in front of a computer playing computer games or something like that. Something that will feel pleasurable. Watching TV all day. And the last thing is that we are looking for companionship. We want to be with other people. We want to secure our survival and the survival of our genes. So we will want to procreate. And that's just something that we like doing because it's also built into us to feel pleasure from doing those activities. And all of these things feel very pleasurable to most people with some variation. So the ultimate thing that you would like to do is like laying on the sofa all day, eating pizza and ice cream with someone you love. Like, wouldn't that be great if we could just spend all our lives doing that? But the way our brains let us know that something is pleasurable is created by a brain chemical called dopamine. There are others as well that will get released, but I'm going to speak about dopamine because this is the biggest one that I will focus on, which the one that has most impact. So let's imagine that you're having a piece of steak, okay? And as a response, your brain will produce and release 100 molecules of dopamine. This is just a number that I picked. It's not anywhere near reality. It's very, we produce a lot more than that. But for the ease of calculating and looking at things, we produce 100 molecules of dopamine. A percentage of these dopamine molecules will, bind to the dopamine receptors in the brain to let you know that something that is beneficial to us and good for our survival is taking place. And that will make you feel good so that you will continue to seek out steak and eat steak in the future. This is how we learn behaviors. We feel good about it and then we want to do it again, and eventually we don't have to think about it. So when this is happening, all good, steak is good for us. We're not gonna starve to death because we know where to find steak. But the next day you order pizza. And that pizza has a whole number of things on it. It's a combination of processed carbs, the bread, which feels really good. There might be sugar in the barbecue sauce that they put on. Maybe there are lots of added flavors. There's fat. And your brain is just doing this little happy dance. This is great. So it's so great that your brain will release 500 molecules of dopamine. But the problem is that the dopamine receptors don't like it when they have to send too many messages. When it's just like too pleasurable, because these foods wouldn't have existed back when our brains evolved. So our brains are not created to be able to interpret messages of this kind. So they're just too many. And the brain doesn't like that. So it's going to be like, well, all we need is a maximum of 100 messages. We don't need 500 of these. Way too many. And now, since there's a percentage of them binding to the receptors, all the receptors are going to be busy. This is a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. They don't like when they have to spend too much resources and in upkeep to have these receptors sending all of those messages, because 100 messages is I can't speak today, are enough. We don't need 500 of them. So since this is happening, we're going to start to fire receptors. We don't need to pay them anymore. We're paying too much. We're still getting the signals through because now we have a lot more dopamine coming in, so we don't actually need that many. So the brain decides to get rid of some of those receptors. We don't have to pay the maintenance. Brilliant. There's no energy spent on them because they don't exist anymore. We don't need to keep them active and whole and repair them and all of that. So the next time you're having pizza, your brain will release 500 molecules of dopamine. But you don't have as many receptors to interpret those messages anymore. So the end result of that is that it is not as pleasurable as the first time. Your interpretation of what's going on now is less pleasure than it was the first time you had that pizza. So the first time, maybe 200 of those messages would have gone through about how great it is to eat pizza. But now maybe it's just 100. And your brain is like, hang on, this is the right food, but we don't feel as good. So let's try to eat some more pizza. Or let's add some ice cream on top of that. We need more because we need to feel the same pleasure, because it was so great to feel that pleasure that we got from 200 molecules. Your brain will just try to compel you to eat more and more and more to get to the same pleasure level as it was the first time, because it knows it's possible to get there, but now we're not quite getting there. So we probably need to eat more. That must be the solution. And in a nutshell, this is what is happening over time. It doesn't happen between the first and the second time you're eating pizza, not to any noticeable degree probably, but no matter how much you eat, you will never feel the same pleasure again. Because the downregulation of the dopamine receptors that is happening over time will just decrease the pleasure you get from eating the same amount of that thing. So eventually you don't really feel any extra pleasure from eating pizza because your brain has adapted to what it thinks should be the normal state. So now when you're eating pizza, you just want to eat pizza to feel normal so that you don't have to feel crap. And another problem that comes from this is that when you have fewer dopamine receptors, your overall sense of well-being in all areas of your life, like just your general sense of well-being, is going to be a lot lower than it would have been if you had the normal amount of receptors present. And that it's because everything that we do that is pleasurable to us will release a little bit of dopamine. But let's say having a hot bath would have released 50 molecules. But now when you downregulate the receptors, you're not going to get the value of 50. You might get the value of 20. So it's not going to feel as pleasurable. And if you have few enough receptors, it's not going to make much of a difference. You might feel like, oh yeah, it felt okay. Like it didn't feel bad, but it wasn't that much fun. It definitely wasn't worth the time to fill the bath and arrange the music and the candles or whatever. No way. That was more effort than it was worth. Because you can't interpret those messages anymore of pleasure. So let's say that you're now eating a piece of steak, and that one is still producing 100 molecules of dopamine, but because of the fewer receptors, you might just get 50% value from eating that steak, and you're like, steak isn't really that good anymore. It doesn't give me any pleasure. I can't take it or leave it. I just want to eat like pizza. Or any sort of processed foods, because those processed foods are always going to give you more dopamine. They're always going to trigger that a lot more. You're going to feel better from eating them. And you just want to do this because that's the only type of food that is now making you feel somewhat normal. So now we're stuck in this loop where we're just chasing something we won't get by keep eating something that we don't want to be eating, but we feel compelled to do it because that is the only way that we can feel okay. So when you then decide to quit, all of a sudden, we don't even have enough dopamine to make us feel normal, and you're going to start to feel really down, like really down. Sometimes people feel like they are getting depressed, and then they quit because it's horrible to be there. But that's going to happen. For some people, that's very mild, and for some people, it's really not great. But if you want to quit, you have to go through that. You need to give your body a chance to upregulate those receptors. It's never going to do that as long as you keep eating those addictive foods. This is the only way that you can do it. So everything is going to feel dull and grey, and we are going to start questioning why we're even doing this. It doesn't make us feel any better, because it won't in the beginning. And you just need to go into this whole journey of quitting knowing that this might happen, or that this will probably happen to some degree or another. It's going to take a little bit of time to upregulate those dopamine receptors. But the good news is that they will upregulate again. This is not damaged for life. So I say that, but there might be some damage to some degree, but you can upregulate them and you can start feeling good about things again. So don't get hung up on that and think that that's now I destroyed it for life, because that is not true. You just need to give a little bit of time. Usually this down period can be somewhere between 2-3 weeks. It's kind of normal, plus minus a week or two. For some people it's a little bit longer. And especially if you have a cheat day in between there, then you're just going to prolong this whole process. Now, there's some bad news as well. And this has nothing to do with the dopamine receptors, but the bad news is that food addiction is just like any other addiction. It doesn't go away as such. And what that means is that that neural pathway and the programming to seek out food, or these kind of foods that have felt very pleasurable to eat in the past, that will always be there. You need to know that's not going to go away. So when someone tells you that you can't cure food addiction, you can only manage it, they usually say, I want to both agree and disagree. Because when they say manage it, what they mean is that you can't ever touch these foods again, or you will go back to your old habits and you will end up binging on them. That is not true. I disagree with that completely. I think that is bullcrap. So the trick is that you need to create a different neural pathway, a good alternative to this one. So for the same scenario, you want to have a new neural pathway that you can choose instead of the old one. And you need to be aware of it. So we can't just hide. We need to start paying attention to what is going on so that you consciously can choose which way you want to go. It's like, do you want the good apple or do you want the bad apple? Yeah, I'm going to choose the good one. The one that I want to choose, because I like that better. And it's not like I don't ever have a food craving anymore. They're just different. I usually say this, it's almost like, you have a banner just like floating by that says, I want chocolate. And I'm kind of looking at it and I'm like, no, I don't really want chocolate. Why does it say that? But those thoughts are still going to come up. And my brain will just try them every now and then, try to trick me and see if I'm going to bite. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to bite. You have fun. I'm just watching from a distance. I'm not interested. And those are cravings. It's just that I don't perceive them to be compulsory anymore. They don't catch me emotionally, gets me involved in all of this drama. I'm like, okay, you think whatever you want to think, brain. But I know that I don't actually want chocolate, and that's fine. So yeah, I do have cravings, but they have a different shape and they don't bother me at all. So when I say like, I'm living a life without cravings, what I mean is that I live a life without the compulsory cravings that I used to have. Because these cravings usually don't bother me. And this is just because I have taught myself how to redirect my cholesterol neural pathway when this happens. And I have practiced this so many times now that it almost happens on autopilot every single time. I don't have to think about it anymore because I've made sure that it's a well-practiced behavior that my brain will go to automatically. So it could go one way or the other, whichever way I direct it. If I'm in, let's say, certain situations, I might have a craving that I'm inclined to respond to, where I have to actively pay attention and step in and be this traffic controller. So I manually have to turn on the red light for the old pathway and let the traffic through to my new pathway. That happens every now and then. Not very often, but it does happen. So it's like just, like I'm saying, it's just like redirecting traffic from this old bumpy road where I know it's very likely that I'm going to end up with a flat tire. And if I'm really unlucky, I might be hit by a landslide and then I'm gone. I just need to redirect the traffic to this new, flashy, smooth road that I have spent the last few years building and maintaining to the highest of standards. The one that I know will feel really good to drive on. Because for some reason, I wanted to drive down the other way. Maybe it's like, oh, we had some good times there in the past, and I want to see that again. So what? That's not really what I want. My brain wants me to think that I do, but it isn't what I actually want. So sometimes the traffic lights don't work. Not the way that we expect them to anyway. And we just have to step in, do it manually, and that's okay. So that's where we have the choice to step in to make sure that the traffic arrives safely at their destination. So essentially, carb addiction is just like any other addiction. It's reinforced by your brain and by the inherent biology in your brain. But we have the power to choose to use the biology to work for us rather than against us. And the way we do that is that we just build new neural pathways that are just as easy to access as the old one. Because we can't get rid of the old one. We just have to make something else that is equally practiced and equally good to choose that makes us feel good. In the beginning, it won't make you feel good because it's uncomfortable doing something new. But now, I feel good about it. Like, yeah, I had a craving, but I'm good. And I'm like, hell yes. Good job, Pim. Very good job. I like it. It's just something that you have to practice over time. It's not going to come overnight. But you can just practice it and you will get there. Some of my clients get there in 2-3 weeks. They still need to practice more to make sure that it's an automatic behavior every single time. But most of my clients, they quit within 2-3 weeks completely. They're like, cool, was it really this easy? And it's just about using our biology in the right way. This is what I teach all my clients. I teach them how to build this new neural pathway and how to practice them until they are on autopilot. And when we do that, their minds are just like, they just start revealing themselves because we have so many beliefs about food and what's going on and why we shouldn't or why we should. And we can just see where this behavior translates in their lives. Like, where else does it show up? Usually you can start spotting the same behavior in other areas of your life as well. And when we see that, we can use the same method to just remove all of those behaviors, and all of a sudden, so many areas in their lives just improve because they learn how to quit processed carbs. It's kind of amazing. But we are animals of habit. We like doing things very similarly. So if we have a bad habit in one area of our lives, that is going to show up in other areas. And it's really, really cool to start just ferreting out where it is and what problems they cause, and then to reverse them and do things differently and just see how things improve on their own. It feels like it's on their own, even though you are the one who's doing the work. But it's super cool anyway. And all of a sudden, you can just have control over anything in your life, basically. Any area of your life, anything that you want to do, anything that you don't want to do. If you just focus on it and you know what to do, all you need to do is the work. And then you can change those things. And that's amazing. And I'm just working, personally, I'm just working on one area at a time. I'm just kind of attacking them one at a time. Food is no longer a problem for me. Okay, then I'm going to work on the next thing. And it's just a really fun journey to go through and just see how things are changing over time. If I think back to where I was 3 years ago and what I thought that I could achieve and what I dared dream about, that's so small compared to where I am now. I'm thinking, like, where am I going to be in 3 years? I'm going to think that what I'm doing right now is so small because in 3 years I have had time to work on so many more areas in my life that this is just going to feel like nothing. It's just the start. And it's the same thing with all my clients. I managed to open their eyes to what's possible for them. It's not just about the food, it's about your whole life and getting rid of all the unhelpful behaviors that we have taught ourselves to do and repeat over time. So ultimately what we want to do is that we want to be able to decide for ourselves what we want our lives to look like. And if we can even control our eating, we're not going to be able to control the rest of our lives either. But it is possible for you to learn how to choose to do anything, both with food and with other things in your life. And if that is a journey that you want to embark on, like, send me an email. We can have a little chat about it. I would be more than happy to help you to get to wherever you want to be. And I believe that that is possible for you because I believe it's possible for me. And you have a human brain, just like I have a human brain. They work the same way. We just need to reprogram them and make sure that that is solidified. And then we need to sort out all of those crap thoughts that we're having, because we have a lot of them. I still have a lot of them. It's not like I don't ever have crap thoughts. I always think crap thoughts, but I also think a lot of good thoughts. And it's that balance that we need to find. If you feel like you're stuck and you're just thinking a lot of crap thoughts, there is a lot of negativity or blaming the past or whatever it might be, yeah, I can help you get rid of that. And just moving you forward to a more balanced state where you can see that that isn't the only truth here. Anyhow, until next time, start taking control of your life and do the things that you want to do. Give yourself the time to do it. This is not going to happen overnight. I'll see you then. Bye.